Hey Girl Gang, it's Dr. Joy here, and you are watching Delivering Joy MD-TV. Welcome to Well Woman Wednesday, where we have been talking about the social determinants of health, how where we live, learn, work, worship, and interact makes a difference on our health. Today, I am joined by a very special guest, and we're going to be talking today about something that we might not even think about when we think about our health, but that's actually social connections and community connections. So make sure you keep watching. All right, y'all, we're back, and today I have a very special guest, Miss Sherri Brown, who's going to be talking to us today about how creating community actually impacts our health for the better. So, Sherri, introduce us to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am the director of Circles of Truth County. Been doing that 10 years as of 2 weeks from now.
Oh, wow.
So it's our birthday.
Yeah.
And I've been in LaGrange for 26 years. And before that, been in a lot of places. I grew up in Chicago, so kind of not exactly from here, but all my kids were raised here, so I feel very connected to the community.
Oh, wow,
Really
that's amazing.
it.
So, Circles of Truth County, I learned about maybe a year or so ago, and we were talking about COVID vaccinations. And that's kind of a prickly topic for a lot of people, I know, but I got a chance to come and visit one time, and I thought that what you were doing there was really amazing. And as I, kind of took a view from the outside looking in, I thought, wow, this is really creating community, because it was an opportunity for people who might not otherwise sit down and have a face-to-face conversation about real life issues to have a chance to actually do that. Tell us how you got involved with Circles.
There was a group of leaders that felt like this was a good model to perhaps help our community become more flourishing and especially financially stable. And so they brought it here, and then I just saw, literally, I was actually working for the newspaper and I wrote about it. And when they talked about what they wanted, I thought, oh, I like that. And I was kind of ready for a change. And so I was hired to start the program. And I started on a Monday, and on Tuesday I was on a plane for training in Kansas City. And 3 days later, I was totally overwhelmed and terrified and thought, what have I done? But it has been an incredible journey, and of learning for myself, but also watching a community come together to just really care about each other. And when you talked about this topic, it kind of made me laugh, because going into the program, we have all sorts of tools on financial stability, how to get a job, how to get more training, how to go back to school, how to set goals. And we help you figure out what you want, and then we help you do it. And so that was my mindset, is I've got all this information and all this empowerment stuff, and we're going to help you do what you want to do. And we meet weekly, and so we have a free meal, which reduces the barrier of having to get your kids fed and get to a meeting. We have a children's program, and I always saw those as barrier reductions to getting to the real reason. And it wasn't long at all before I started realizing that just even that meal, because we sit around and we talk to each other and we check in on each other, and we follow each other's kids and all that kind of stuff. But that relation building and that connection. Dinner wasn't about just not having to cook that night. It was about an incredible opportunity for volunteers in the community, staff members, participants, friends, to just sit down and get to know each other. One of my favorite stories from one of the first cohorts, I had a woman who told me her story, and she talked about, as a child, her father was in and out of her life, and one thing that she always wanted was for her mother, her father, and siblings to all sit down and have dinner together. Mm-hmm. She always dreamed about that, and it never happened. And one day, I get a little teary, but she said, one Thursday night we were at a meeting, and she walked up to me and she said, I told you my dream never came true. She said, but every week at Circles, I feel like I'm sitting with family, and I think maybe my dream came true.
Oh, wow.
And that was so powerful for me, because I don't think I'd put that together, but I think the community we bring may be the most important thing we do.
Right, and that is the very key to this part of the social determinants of health is people
Absolutely.
feeling like they have a community, like they have a village, like they have
Yes.
that support system.
Yes.
Because that's pivotal to what you can achieve and how you can set goals and actually meet them. We are made for connection.
Absolutely.
Human beings are made for
Yes.
connection, and that is an integral part of how we see ourselves and how we visualize the world around us. So, in circles, from what I've come to understand, you guys actually help people to connect with their community and actually set some goals specifically around rising out of poverty. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, how do you start to have those conversations with folks? Like, do you meet people at grocery stores and just say, hey, would you like to come to circles? Or how do you start these conversations?
Yes, so we meet people at grocery stores and we have a lot of collaboration. We have been doing it 10 years. So a lot of people just say, I think you should call Sherri or Holly or one of our staff, or sometimes they just come to a meeting. A lot of times it's more word of mouth, but yes, I have stood at tables and churches and everything, just telling people what we do and getting their phone numbers and connecting. I see a lot of, and it's men and women, but I see a lot of women who just really struggle and feel very alone. And when they come to us, they want something different. They may not know what. And we just help them figure that out. One of our staff members always says, our Thursday night meetings are an hour and a half gift to you to think about you. You don't have to worry about your kids, got it taken care of. You don't have to worry about anything. It's just a time to think about you. And a lot of times we don't have that space.
Right.
The bandwidth to really spend just thinking about, what do I want? And so we have those tools, and then we also have volunteers. We call them allies that come along. A lot of them are at the meetings every week, and they're there. And again, this goes back to community. We celebrate and we encourage. So if you're having a hard time, if things, feel like they're going backwards, there's people always to encourage you. But one of the things that I've noticed too is a lot of times people don't have people who celebrate with them. And someone comes in and says, I paid off a credit card, and we just go bananas, or I got a raise, or I got a promotion, or I got the job I've been wanting, or whatever. And we get really excited. And I realize, and I've had people tell me over and over, I don't have people in my life that celebrate with me. And so I think that's a huge part of being community and being there for each other as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when people, that positive reinforcement, when people have that, they really think about, okay, what am I going to do next? What's going to be my next achievement, my next goal, my next big thing? Because that positive reinforcement just sets us on, okay, my next big achievement is going to be this, so that I can get more of that positive reinforcement. So I do think that that's huge, especially when you're dealing with communities that might be marginalized, communities that maybe were not always pushed to achieve. Maybe they didn't have high expectations set during childhood, or no one ever talked to them about setting goals and making plans for their lives. And so they just kind of have dealt with life as it was presented to them. Here's this next thing, here's that next thing, and never really planned or put a lot of foresight into what we're going to be doing next. So I think that that's a really big deal. In terms of how that affects our health, we think about cycles of poverty, and we think about how people lift themselves out of those cycles. In circles, I think that what you're doing is providing people an opportunity to reach for something else, and then to actually bring their children with them, behind them. How do you, what does that work feel like? I can't imagine. It's got to be so fulfilling.
It is some of the best moments I've ever had. It's also some of the most heartbreaking moments I've ever had, because life's hard, and there are things that happen, and it's just hard. And there you see situations, and there's not an answer, there's not a fix. And I know you see this in healthcare as well. Yeah. And it's frustrating, because you want everybody to thrive. And sometimes things are really hard. But at the same time, and when we tell people, you might start here and you can go to here, or maybe you're going to start here and you're going to go here, but wherever you are, just start there. and move forward. That's the only goal we have for folks, is move forward. And it's okay if it's a little bit and then backwards. We focus on financial health and everybody thinks, oh, you're all about money. Well, we're about stability, and that includes a broad spectrum. Your mental health, your physical health, your spiritual health, and your financial health, and your legal health, and your family systems and your community, all those things. And so we have those conversations about all those topics. You came and gave us really good information about COVID, and there was like lots of questions and fear, and having someone from our community that was willing to come and just sit down and say, all right, here's the facts. It's your decision, but here's the facts. And that is something that I think a lot of people don't feel is truly accessible. And so when that happens in a room, in a space like that, it's empowering.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that education about, just that holistic piece of, here's what life can look like, here is where we are now, here is a map for how we can potentially get to where you want to be. Those roadmaps are essential for folks who may have been just struggling to figure out what's the next step.
Yes.
And for there to be a program that addresses that is really, really, I think, amazing for us to have that here in Troup County. I love the idea of people having a space where they can find celebration for their achievements, they can find help to get to that next space, and they can also just kind of find some folks who will serve as accountability partners. Yeah, that's huge.
Yep.
When you're trying to take some new steps, because growth is hard.
It is.
It takes a lot.
Yeah, and I think that's a frustrating part, because a lot of folks, nobody does it by themselves. And a lot of folks think, oh, I got where I was by myself. And I challenge that and say, well, let's think back. Your family was supportive, you had teachers that were supportive, you had a church community supporting you, and connecting you, and we don't really do it by ourselves. And so, it's exciting.
Yeah, I think it's really, really great. In terms of health, when we think about social connections, the biggest things that I always think about when it comes to having a village of support are mental health and physical health, because mental health is huge.
Yes.
Without that, we're not going to do well with our physical health. And when we're not doing well with mental health, we often neglect our physical health.
Yeah.
Because we may not be as prone to go to our appointments. We may not seek help when we are having some physical difficulties. So mental health is huge. And then physical health, if we're not really necessarily as able to do things that we need to do for ourselves, that community sometimes comes in and rallies behind us and helps us get some of the things that we need done. So I think those are two huge things. But when folks don't necessarily have a lot of support, like for instance, an example for me is often when I have moms who have really high risk pregnancies and they have other kids and they need to go to various appointments, and they're like, oh, I just don't have any support, no one to come and help me watch the other kids or help me get to different places that I need to go. And so that community is huge when it comes to health. And so I think that building that community is absolutely essential. And when moms have special needs kids, but there are lots of different aspects of our health that we rely on our community or our village for. If we don't have necessarily all the family support, we still may need those folks in the community to come out. And I love programs like Circles and like the Chatty Women of LaGrange, our Chatty Cares program. Those things, I love to see those, because those things help people get past things that they're trying to get past with their health and with mental health. Talk a little bit about how you think Circles is going to help drive community connection in LaGrange over the next 5 to 10 years.
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Well, I hope we continue to do what we do. And again, the longer we're doing this, the more connections we have. We have people who have come through and are just really doing well. And they're able to encourage and kind of give back in some ways. But we also build collaboration on top of collaboration. And I really think that's key to a successful community, which I believe we have a really strong community. We have a lot of different helps, and I can't fix everything, but I usually know somebody who can. And so that's, recently we had a situation where some children, a child that needed some help and was kind of alone, and we brought in Safe Families, and they came alongside, and a family just kind of brought this young woman into their lives and is supporting her through that. But then there's another group that's doing another piece, and she wants to go back to school, so we've got another group doing that. So be able to make those connections and build those connections among all the resources that we have here is really powerful. Again, it goes back to, you don't do it by yourself. And not one person can't do all of what you need, but we can usually find somebody who can help you do each piece.
That, I think, is one of the biggest, most critical points, is that we have to know what is available within our community. Like operating in silos, there's many people doing great work, but if we don't know what's available in the community, then there may be programs that are duplicating work. There may be programs that have opportunities out there that people don't get access to because they simply don't know. So by having programs that actually access the resources of other programs and collaborate, that really helps us be able to maximize the community support that we have for people who may need that. And I think that's really important. One thing that I noticed when I visited circles is that there were people who seemed to be very active in the business community, who were active in civic leadership. And I mean, there were people from all walks of life that were there. I loved to see that collaboration and to hear the conversations that were taking place in that room. And I think that's something that's also very important. Can you talk a little bit about how you recruit volunteers and folks to just come in and kind of link arms with the people that you're serving through circles?
We talk everywhere. We'll talk to any group, anytime. We love to be invited to groups, and people are able to just kind of drop in and feel it out a little bit to see if it's something they want to commit to, and we like that. We're always open to guests, community members, visitors. But I think one of my favorite things is that Thursday night meeting, because I look around that room and I see, okay, we have people who are very, very poor. We have people who are very well off. We have Democrats and Republicans. We have white and we have black. We have men and we have women. We got old and we got young. And it's probably the most diverse group I'm in every week. And the interesting thing is we're all together to support each other. And so a lot of those differences seem to drop away. And I think that's very powerful in building community and friendships and connections. We all teach each other different things. And so like I said, we talk a lot. We also do a lot of awareness programs. One of the pieces is recognizing in circles that while I can help you achieve your personal goals, there is a community aspect of poverty, and there's a lot of barriers that a lot of people aren't really aware of. We've already mentioned transportation, childcare, just to get to doctor's appointments. I mean, that doesn't seem like that can be insurmountable if you just don't have the money or the support systems. And so bringing all that together and bringing that awareness to our community can help people be better neighbors and better employers, better co-workers, and so we do poverty simulations. I don't know that you've been in one.
I have not, but I am definitely looking forward to doing one.
They're fun. They're intense, but they're really eye-opening for a lot of our middle-class community that doesn't really understand how it's not as simple. I wish it was. I wish it was get a job, manage your money, and you'll be fine. It's not. It's not that simple. It's just not. And if you don't believe me, call me and I'll explain it to you. But I have really had my eyes open the last 10 years, because I probably at one point in my life for sure had that belief that, just keep your nose clean and, move forward. We
were talking in the housing episode. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll link the housing episode to this video. But we were talking about how we always hear the phrase, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But it can be difficult when you don't have boots to grab those straps. So you need that foundation first. And even when I was thinking about myself and and how hard I've had to work in my lifetime to achieve the things I've achieved, I really did not have to come from abject poverty, and I had parents who were educated, and I came from, from folks who at least had a foundation for me to step up onto. For people who are having to then lay that foundation and then climb from there, it's a lot more difficult.
It is.
So I have to think about that and actually recognize that regardless of how hard I worked, it could have been a lot harder for me. So I have to appreciate that in folks that I'm serving that are, having to lay that foundation and climb up.
My previous career, I was a reporter, and I came to really not enjoy that super success story, like, oh, look at how bad they have it and how good they have it, because it gave an opportunity for people to say, well, look, he did it, she did it, everybody can do it. And those stories are big stories because they don't happen that often. They don't happen that often because you really don't do it alone. I grew up middle class. We didn't have a lot, but stable, was never hurt, never worried about food. I didn't get all the things I wanted, but I certainly had everything I needed. My husband did not. His father left when he was a baby. His mother moved home with 3 children with her parents. Grandfather worked at the mill in North Georgia, and they just scraped by. And he has 3 graduate degrees and has had a different career, but it wasn't his family because his family didn't know. It was teachers who stepped into his life. I mean, he signed up to do early release and go to work at the mill. And his chemistry teacher walked in and said, I'm tearing this up. You're going to college. That wasn't even an option. He was smart and he worked hard, like you said, but his pastor put him in the car, took him to Mercer University and said, y'all need to admit him and pay for it. And they pretty much did.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. And so, his whole life changed because those people believed in him. Again, it's that community. They stood up for him and they, yes, he did the work. Yes, he was smart enough. He's way smarter than me. And so, he had all those things. But his life would have looked completely different if he was 100% in charge of his life at 15, 16. And interestingly, a lot of research has been done on people who make it out of poverty. And the one thing that they looked at that was common among everybody was that they had somebody who believed in them, somebody who was there for a long period of time. Usually it was a teacher or someone from a church. Those were the 2 main places.
Wow.
It was really powerful. And that was true for him. And I see that, I think people are a lot more able to move forward when they've got people cheering them on. But if they don't, we will do it for them. We'll be your person.
Fantastic. That is just such a beautiful story. And we think about how people often take what they do every day for granted. But there are so many people that are watching you, that are looking forward to seeing you every day. Or to seeing you on a regular basis, and they come to really depend on that smile, that word of encouragement, that kindness that you show them. And so don't discount what you do, especially our teachers, our folks who are in the in ministry and in our worship communities. You guys make a huge difference every day. One of the most gratifying things that I've ever seen is a patient of mine who got pregnant in high school, and she messaged me on social media and sent me pictures of her graduating from college. And she said, I wanted to quit high school, and you refused to sign my papers for me to go on hospital homebound. She said, because I wasn't going to do the homebound program. I was just going to try to get out of high school.
Yep.
And she said, you refused and you made me go to school until I had my baby.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah. And she said, you sat me down. I didn't remember. She said, you sat me down and you told me I had to complete high school because I had a baby and I was going to go to college and I was going to get a job and I was going to support myself. And you had this long talk with me one day in your office. And I don't think I ever thought about that conversation again, but she did. Yeah. And she finished because she said, I just want you to know that I finished and I'm going to be a social worker.
Oh, wow.
And so it was just, those ripple ripple effects that we have on our communities every day, they're so huge. So never discount that time that it takes.
Yep.
Just to talk to that person, just to encourage that person, to tell them that you see their potential.
Absolutely.
It's huge. It's absolutely huge.
And you know, I think a lot of, especially women, and again, we work with men too, but I think especially women, we tend to downplay our strengths and we don't even know what we're capable of. And I think also our community, as a community, we don't always recognize that in each other. And I'll sit down when they come into our program. Anybody can come to a Thursday night meeting anytime, but there's a process to get into the program. You start with a 12-week class, which starts in the spring and in the fall, and then you continue. It's about a 2-year program. And but you can just come for fun if you want to. That's fine. But I'll sit down with them and say, "Tell me your story. Tell me how you got where we are today." And they feel like a failure. They feel like they haven't succeeded. They don't feel like they have a whole lot of worth. And then they'll sit there and they'll tell me how, you know, their mom was single and they took care of their little brother from the time they were 7 years old. And, you know, I had one that, you know, she was like leader of 3 different groups in her high school, graduated pregnant with her second child. And she graduated from, and I'm sitting there thinking, you're a freaking rock star. I mean, oh my word. But she feels like she's less than. And I'm going,
No,
you're amazing.
You have lots of strength. And we just need a little bit of focus. We need to focus that power, harness and focus that power that you already have. And I think that's the huge thing, is just teaching people how to focus and harness the power they already have. And once they point that power in the right direction, they're taking off.
Absolutely. Holly is our coach. She teaches the classes and she is a coach. That's why we call her that. But she said, if I could have one wish, it's that everyone that walked in the room would see themselves the way I see them, because I see so much potential and so much strength, and it's sometimes so hard to convince them of that. And I do think we are way stronger than, but sometimes we're tired, we're worn out, life's hard. And I think that's a valid issue that we have to address as well.
Right, I absolutely agree. And there's so much power in community. And when we have a community standing behind us, we can take a second and just regroup and breathe and just say, okay, let me catch my second wind. And now let me focus and figure out what's going to be my next move. And that community can hold me for a second while I just regroup here. And that's the power of community. When you don't feel like you have that community, when you don't feel like you have that safe space, that's when you kind of are just like can fall into hopelessness and despair, and feel like tomorrow, and despair, the definition of despair is thinking that tomorrow is going to be exactly like today, like there's not hope. And I think that what you guys are doing in Circles is giving people hope, letting them know that tomorrow does not have to be just like today. That's awesome. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing here.
Thank you.
Tell the people how they can connect with Circles.
Okay, our website is circlesoftroop.org. You can call me. You can find me on Facebook, Sherri Anthony Brown, and just send me a message, and I'd love to talk with you about it and tell you more and tell you how to get together. We are on a summer schedule. We will meet July 14th, and then we will start back when school starts back in August. So any Thursday night, we meet at Troop Baptist Association, which is across the street from Berta Weathersby, and we have dinner starting at 5:30, and then our meeting, and anybody can come.
Well, that is absolutely an amazing invitation. So if you would like to volunteer with Circles, if you would like to get involved in the Circles program as a participant, please go and visit a meeting, get in touch with Sherri. It is a wonderful, wonderful program, and we would love for folks to get more involved. And that's how we build communities, and communities, strong communities, equal better health for all of us. We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. This was a great conversation, and we will catch you next time, Girl Gang. Peace.